The Douglas School Committee to order at 6:36 on March 19th, 2025. I'd like to read the Douglas mission statement for Douglas Public Schools. The Douglas Public Schools offer a diverse learning experience that meet the academic, social, physical, and emotional need of all of our students. We provide a safe, supportive, and challenging learning environment in which students may achieve academic success and personal growth. Decisions are made in the best interest of our students. Please rise for a Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call our student representatives, Zoe Musgrove and Ryan Peach, up, please.
Hello, my name is Ryan and I'm here with Zoe. We are student council members at the middle school. We have not presented in a while and there have been a lot of exciting things happening around the middle school. All Douglas winter sports have ended their season and the athletes are looking forward to spring track starting tomorrow. We have over 90 members signed up at this time. Our softball and baseball practices has just started. We are so thrilled to be starting and continuing all these sports.
For school-wide events, we started our grade-wide March Madness tournament yesterday and continued it today. We will be having our final game soon to determine our winner. Our annual talent show is less than a month away, taking place on April 17th. We are doing final preparations and planning to have an entertaining and exciting event. The whole school is reading our second literature circle books. Our next meeting will be during the school day on Friday, March 28th. On Friday, February 28th, we had our second and final student council planned dance for the whole school. The theme was Night in New York. We set it up beautifully and many students attended. Right before February break, we had our school-wide Winter Olympics. This event was a favorite amongst many students. We had games and events like Biggie Ball, Dodgeball, Pictionary, and many more unique games. This event builds community, team building, and sportsmanship. The student council members put a lot of effort into planning this event, and it turned out great. It's hard to believe that we are already in the second half of the third quarter. Progress reports have been released, and we are excited to continue in the third quarter.
In the 6th grade hallway, students have been working to their fullest ability. In science, they have been studying cells and organisms and are finishing up their cell science projects. Across the hall in math, they are practicing dividing mixed and improper fractions using worksheets and IXLs. In history, they are working on their Egypt projects and learning about the world's major religions. They are currently wrapping up their Titanic writings in MCAS preparation.
In 7th grade, we are also working hard. In science, we just completed a fascinating lab on mimicry. We are learning about the different types of camouflage, mimicry being one of them. In this lab, we used M&Ms and Skittles since they are almost identical, and we have to determine which one is which. We have been playing fun games and doing creative activities to prepare us for our quiz on Friday. In math, we had our quiz yesterday, and we are now moving on to another section of our current unit, non-proportional and proportional relationships. In ELA, we are focusing on compare and contrast writing and have a quiz coming up next Wednesday about the different aspects of compare and contrast writing. We have just started a new topic in history about the different types of governments in the world and in history. We just paused a unit about ancient Greece and its history, culture, and religion. We will be coming back to this topic and learning about the fascinating history behind ancient Greece.
Down the hall, the middle school's 8th graders have been working hard. In science class, we have begun learning about the different types of reproduction that various organisms use. In math, the 8th graders are learning about the Pythagorean theorem and graphing diagonal lines, while the honors math students are learning about different angles and transformations. Meanwhile, in civics, students have been working hard on their children's books, explaining the Constitution. We will be reading these books to our 3rd grade buddies next week. In English, during this time of year, students are working on MCAS practice, which is a March Madness bracket for poetry and the different aspects of it, focusing on topics, imagery, and figurative language. Similar to English, children in Spanish class are also making March Madness brackets, but for Spanish songs instead. They are also creating album covers for the song they think is the best.
Thank you for having us and have a great night.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Well done.
Well done. Nice eye contact
Yeah,
for
excellent.
being in the middle school. Great job. Anybody here for public comment? Seeing as that there is not any old business we need to discuss.
We do not.
All right, moving on to new business.
All right, we're going to start off today with the introduction, although he does not need an introduction, of our new school resource officer, Adam Wright. We were very fortunate at town meeting last year when the town appropriated funds, not only for us to upgrade our security cameras across the district, which the project I think is finalized today or tomorrow, but we were also able to add an additional school resource officer. So Brett spends the majority of his time here at the high school, and Adam is at the primary, elementary, and middle school. And I'll say this, he is everywhere. You start the day off, he's in front of the middle school. Next thing you know, he's greeting kids at the elementary school. Next thing you know, he's doing recess duty. Then he's at the cafeteria at the middle school. Then he's helping Cindy do recess. He's in the hallways, he's in classrooms. If you ever want to see what rock star status looks like, just follow Adam in the elementary or the primary school. He might even be elevated a step above Finn in the hallways.
That's
Just
no
what you
easy
aspire
feat.
to, right? But he's been awesome. He's been everywhere. He's been a phenomenal resource to the 4 principals. Again, spends the bulk of his time on that campus with the 3 buildings. But when I tell you I see him everywhere, he is everywhere. He's in the halls, he's in the cafeteria, he's helping out Mrs. Smith in PE, he's doing recess with the kids, he's doing gym with the kids, he's in classrooms reading, he's serving lunch, he's doing everything, and he's been such a phenomenal resource and asset to us and to the community. So I wanted Adam just to come up and introduce himself, tell him a little bit about his background, and talk about his first 6 months here in Douglas.
Thank you, Dr. Vieira.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. How are we doing?
Finding you.
Good, thanks, good. Okay, so a little bit about myself. Adam Wright, obviously. So I graduated from Worcester State with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice back in 2014, and I started basically my professional law enforcement career in Douglas. I've been here my entire career. I started as a part-time dispatcher and essentially worked my way up to full-time officer. I ended up going back to school to get my master's back in 2022. That was in criminal justice with law enforcement leadership and administration. So ended up doing that, and I always wanted to be a school resource officer. I didn't think it would happen this early on in my career, and when it did, I couldn't have been more excited. When I say it's a dream job, it's kind of like corny and a cliche, but it essentially is my dream job. I wake up every day and I can't wait to get into the schools to see everyone. And the administration, the students, the staff have been nothing but more than welcoming and accepting and just awesome, bringing me into kind of their family. So it's really been great. It's been really a dream come true for me, and I love it. I love everything about it. A little bit about how a day goes in the life of Officer Adam. My hours are 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So 7 a.m. is like getting to the station, getting dressed. If I have paperwork to catch up on there, I'll do that, and then I try and get up to the schools for student arrival. So whether that's the middle school in the morning or the elementary school or the primary school, but try and be there so parents can see me, students see me when they walk in, just kind of being present, being that person up there. I make it a point to try and say hi and good morning or good afternoon to as many staff and students as I can, just to let them know, like, I'm here, I can see you, I want to make sure, like, I can see you, essentially, just being friendly, right? Depending on what happens that day, I could get called to help someone or not, but basically a watered-down version is the first lunch starts at 10:48 in the middle school, and the last lunch of these 3 schools ends at 1 o'clock, and it's a 5th grade lunch. So from 10:48 to 1 o'clock, I'm pretty much bouncing around between these 3 schools doing lunch duty, and whether it's helping a student open something that their parents packed them, or they have a question for me and I need to refer them to another teacher, whatever it may be, or if I'm just another set of eyes for the staff that's there, whatever it may be, it's pretty much just bouncing around to different lunches. And then at the end of the day, from 1 to 3 o'clock, whatever comes up, it could be really anything, sitting in an IEP meeting, which I've done, or helping a student get somewhere, or whatever it may be, until dismissal. So I try and get to the middle school for their first dismissal, and then after that, the elementary school dismissal, and kind of just saying bye to everyone, have a good afternoon, hope you had a good day, stuff like that. But it's kind of funny, a day is never really the same. Things change, things come up last minute, so, getting out at 3 may not be feasible that day. So it's just kind of take it with how it goes, how the day goes. I love it. You just never know what's going to happen, so yeah, but I'm super fortunate, super lucky, and over the moon, so.
Any questions?
Has any
John?
questions?
No, it's nice to see somebody who is like excited to be with the kids. I think that's like the mainstay of being in schools is
Yeah.
just really enjoying the kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think as a parent and as a school committee member, every time I pull in and your car is there, I'm like, okay, someone's here keeping an eye. Like it gives the parents, I think, a real sense of security knowing that you're there.
That's good, and that's what I want to. I want the parents to see me. I want them to know that I'm there. I try to spend as little amount of time in my office as I can. I want to just be out there in the halls. If a parent is coming in to dismiss their kid, making a point to say hi to them, just like letting people know I'm there. If you see my cruiser, I'm up there, and just letting people know I'm around. So even if you can't see me, I'm around somewhere. But yeah, so yeah.
I just think growing up here, we had Officer Rick, who always came to lunch, and as we got older, we always knew he was there. And people that I graduated with, that's still such a core memory of our childhood. But we always knew, even if kids were getting in trouble, we always knew Officer Rick was fair. We always knew we could go to him. So I think it's it's more than just the physical safety of the building, which is huge nowadays, but you're making a difference on so many kids.
Thank you. I hope so. I hope so.
I see pictures posted of you and kids on social media because they're really proud of themselves.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate, that the town allowing the opportunity for us to have a second officer, that's huge, and the chief supporting it, right?
Absolutely. Right.
That speaks volumes, because we are such a small community, but it's a win for the town side as well as the win for the school side. And this collaboration I would hope would continue as we go forward, and perhaps get more officers in the school, because right now I know you're running yourself ragged between the 3 different schools. But the safety of our students, right, and as well as our staff, that is paramount to everything that we do. So I appreciate the fact that you're willing to come into the school and be welcomed into our community and help us, right?
Yeah.
But it's not so much the policing, it's building that relationships with our students.
Yeah.
That is the key to all of our successes.
Exactly.
So, thank you so much for doing
Yes.
what you're doing.
Appreciate it. Yes, thank you for having me here tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you so much.
Next on the agenda, something I'm excited to present to you. Kathleen Hayes has done some work with literary circles, and would like to present what it is, how it works. I thought you had kids coming too, but,
I told them they could leave.
okay.
It's
just
too
so
nice out there.
It's so exciting that you want all that joy to come from you.
myself.
All right.
Yeah, you remember things. So we started literature circles this year, and kind of started actually in my head a really long time ago. In 2020, when we had left school, I had just given all the kids in my class novels for groups of, group reading. And I was like, it worked. Like, it was so nice to have that during 2020, because that's what they focused on when they were at home. We did group discussions on Zoom, and I was like, we need to do this. And then when everybody came back, the stamina was gone. It was amazing how fast you saw that stamina gone. And it was just, I have a love for reading, and I just felt like something needed. And I got an email from Mrs. Sosha about grant money, and I applied for it, and shockingly, I got it. I wasn't expecting it. So the grant money helped purchase 15 copies of multiple novels. So we had the novels in our school, older novels that weren't as interesting as novels today for the kids. So we were able to purchase a variety of different novels. So when it happens is during the school day.
We alternate our schedule, and we have 30 to 40 minutes. We start in the auditorium with the whole school, and I share a slideshow of where the kids are going to go that day, which teacher is in charge of them, and they get called one by one, and they leave together, and they read the first or second, however many chapters the teacher reads to the students, to create buy-in, to get the students excited, and to not have that pressure of reading something on your own. That first few chapters aren't always very good. So the entire middle school is used, all the classrooms, everybody separates. And why it's happening, there's so many reasons. I have a whole slide for that. But how it's happening is because I have supportive admin and staff, and everybody was willing to jump in and help with this initiative. And during long block, each grade is using 15 minutes of their long block to read silently. And they're encouraging students to read at home. And my motto, I always told the kids, I'm like, if you're reading 30 minutes a day, uninterrupted, phone on silent, you can get through a novel at your level between 2 to 3 weeks. So if you are consistent with that, it will work. And why I feel it's important is it does encourage students to read, gives students the opportunity to discuss literature with others, which is part of our listening and speaking skills. It builds community by interacting with others. We can discuss with teachers and students what they're reading. It's a great conversation starter. And higher test scores are directly linked to independent reading, more stamina, more knowledge of various cultures, historical events, topics, and global issues that tend to be on standardized tests. So we send out a Google form with a summary and each of the novels available. Each of the kids gets 3 options to choose from. And then I do a Google spreadsheet and try to get as many kids into the novels that they want within that time. So it's not always easy. And then there's sometimes when there's people that have forgotten to do it, but it has worked out so that when we're in the auditorium, the kids that are missing, I don't schedule myself a book, and then those kids that are left tends to be about 15, and I just take those and we pick a book and we read that. So it's been working, and we're in our second cycle. We are going to be reading in a group, or meeting in a group on Friday, and Friday, March 28th, and we'll start our 3rd round right the next week to keep the stamina going, and then everybody will have books to silent read during all their MCAS testing too. So the takeaways, I have some wins and takeaways. I'll tell you the wins. I've just asked around, and my friends were willing to share, but they were like, I knew they needed to leave, but. So my wins are staff are able to connect with students from different grades and build relationships. One teacher said, I have a 6th grader that finds me in the hall and at lunch to talk about Peak. Teachers suggesting other books by the author. One student went up to one of the teachers and was like, I love that book. I didn't think I would like it. And it was by Jerry Spinelli, and she was like, well, let's see if we can find other books by Jerry Spinelli. I had 2 great ones from kids that I did not expect. One, Mrs. Hayes, I never thought I would look forward to silent reading each day. And then, I totally disagree with you, Mrs. Hayes. I love that book, and everyone should read it. You might know that. Very adamant. And then we got a great email. The teachers will send emails to their groups and asking them, where are you? How you doing? I'm really liking the book. And one person to Mrs. Martinson said, good afternoon, Mrs. Martinson. I've gotten all the way up to chapter 16, and I do really enjoy the book. I've started off by reading the book in my room and got distracted, so I've tried reading the audiobook. The audiobook has been a great method for me to read longer. So we've been able to find the audio links, and almost all of them have a YouTube version. So we link that to to either the slide deck or to the emails that we're sending out, so the kids can just click the link and listen if they choose. And as an avid reader, I really struggled with that for a really long time, but I think it's such a great thing because it's not just the reading itself, it's what they're learning from it and the empathy they're learning from the characters they're learning about and the cultures. We got an email from a parent. I just wanted to send a note to let you know how much my child is enjoying the school-wide literacy reading circles. I have noticed her being genuinely excited to read, and last week she insisted we go to the library for one of the books, Ghost Boys, to read on her own, which doesn't happen that often. I think the book choices are wonderful all around, and the book club style discussions seem to be exciting for her as well. As I am sure you already know, she can take a little to gather her thoughts, but I think it has been really great for her, and the benefits are obvious to me as well. So we were happy to see, different things like that. So our takeaways is it gives a child a choice and encouragement and time to read. This is an authentic way to improve reading and writing skills. It builds community. Students and teachers are getting to know each other in different grades. The mixing is great. We're keeping it safe. We're keeping it structured. There's a couple books that are a little mature, so we're not having sixth graders read them. So our next steps, I would like more contemporary novels are needed. Every time I ask for feedback from the staff and the students on what they liked, what they didn't like. And we're going to connect with the public library for support and options and extra copies. Keep it in the schedule for next year, hopefully. Create an area in the school to share book recommendations by students and teachers. And then we were thinking of putting posters on the teachers' doors of what I'm reading now.
Cool.
So day of, each group gets one of these. Everything's in it they need they have the instructions, how it, because not everybody's comfortable, with the reading group. So I give them a structure of what the Socratic circle would look like, the purpose, expectations, and then the directions. So each packet has conversation starters. There's a list of questions plus critical thinking cards. And then the goal of the teacher or staff member, because everybody's involved in it. And it's more to be the observer and in the discussion rather than leading the discussion. So that part, each time we do it, will get a little bit easier for the kids. So, and there's, obviously a huge page of reasons to, benefits of sustained silent reading, but we all know those, so. We're just hoping to keep going with it.
I love it. Love it.
Oh,
love
I
it, love
I
it.
love it so much. With two in the middle school who do not like to read at all, it's been a game changer for sure. So I'm so appreciative of all the work that you put in. I think too these grade levels, it's so hard for them to find material to read. There's really not a great selection. Elementary there's so much, and even high school, but this age is really hard to find appropriate reading material.
And we had an author come, I don't even know, long time ago, and he said that the hardest thing now of being an author is grabbing the the middle school reader's attention in the first paragraph. Rather than, it's not like, oh, let me describe the scenery and,
I got 15 TikTok seconds.
Right? Their attention span is
Exactly.
gone, so.
Yeah.
I love the program where you're reading aloud, right? To get that buy-in, I think that is huge. That's a huge win. I just know from my kiddos, I had the avid reader and I had the one that did not like to read. Audiobooks are the way to go because now he will sit there and read independently because of that. But it was your classroom because you made them read, right? And so it's true. You have to learn to read and understand, but it's hard. But that buy-in, I swear that's what's going to be the success is because once they are vested in it, you already got them. So thank you so much for applying for the grant. I mean, this is just another win for us. So please keep doing what you're doing, Ms. Hayes, making a difference, and your colleagues getting the buy-in of the teams. I mean,
They're great. They're great to work with, so
thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you. So I guess Star Data has to follow that and Officer Adam. I did.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And I should have done the agenda differently. Jay, can you get that up on the screen, please? So, this next presentation is about 100 slides long. We are not going to go slide by slide for all of them. Then we have the budget, and then we have communication. You have in your packets close to about 200 slides. That would be analysis paralysis and just not productive. So, what we're going to do is in January, principals did their mid-year review of the STAR data. And you have the packets in front of you. They're going to come up and they're going to present a couple of success stories that they saw from the data, but also where we need to grow and improve. We did have some pockets of success, but we also obviously still have areas that we need to grow upon. In the slide packet, you're going to see district data and statewide data. The district data talks about how our kids are comparing against students in Douglas. And then you're going to see the dip in some of the numbers for statewide data, and that's how we compare at being ready for the MCAS exam at that particular moment in time. What we're going to focus in on today is the growth data. And the growth data is broken up into three areas. Low growth is 1% to 34%, typical growth is 35 to 65%, and high growth is 66 to 99%. And that shows where we compare with students across the nation. So in K, for instance, when we gave the assessment, as a whole, we were 56%, which is right smack in the middle of typical growth, but we are doing better than 56% of the kindergarten students across the nation who took the STAR exam. So I'm going to have Cindy come up and start and talk a little bit about her STAR data in ELA and in math, talk about pockets of success where she saw them, and talk about what they're doing to improve the scores and grow from now until the end of the year. Miss Cindy.
So our successes, I would say, would be the ability to move those students into, the at or above, the green category, especially when you consider a kindergarten student. We have kindergartners coming in that had 5 days of preschool, full day, and had 2 days of preschool, no preschool, no daycare. They're coming right from home, they're still babies. So they're all over the place. So for us in K to be able to have 85% at the mid-year at grade level, I think is a huge success. Grade 1 is at 93% in ELA with only five students below grade level. So I think that's a huge success in itself. It also shows that what we did in K carried over to grade 1. Another success I would have to is shout out to our teachers for the work that they put into those ISSPs and how they targeted those skills specifically for every single student. So they really embraced that whole process, and they keep updating it every time that we administer the test. And actually, they do it like every 2 weeks for some of those red and yellow students, so that they make sure they're making progress, they're making sure that what they're doing is working, and if it's not, then they adjust what they're doing, what skill they're working on. We also have a very strong Tier 2 Title I program, and that is helping as well. It's targeting those skills that are necessary for those kids, and hopefully they can move out of Title I eventually. And then the SST meetings that we have weekly, where we brainstorm, looking at ideas, using UDL strategies. So I think those would be all of the successes. When we look at students that are still in red and yellow at this point, we know exactly who they are. We've identified all of them. I can tell you that they include students that are in sub-separate classrooms. We had a new student in kindergarten come into the district, had never been in school and is 7 years old. We have 2 English learners who just recently started receiving English learning services. And we also have students that were in Title I, not making gains in Tier 2, not able to, make the adjustments there, so now they're in the evaluation process. And, we're talking about in ELA for grade 1, we're talking about 2 students in red and yellow. We don't have anyone in red. So I think we're very lucky, but I think we're working hard too.
Yep.
Any questions?
So all of your students are able to access the STAR? All of them were able to take it?
Yes.
That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
Well, again, it reinforces what the staff is doing, right? They're putting in the effort to target those children that need that extra support. And so, you know, I hate to see kids struggle, but we know that our staff has got their eye on our students. So thank them for us, please.
Sure.
Well, and I don't know, I don't think you've actually said 93% of grade one. That's amazing.
There's only 5 students under that.
Yeah,
So-
that's a huge
Right.
number. That's amazing.
Right. So when you talk about growth, there's not a lot of growth that we can make.
Right, right.
But it means that we set them up for success.
Yeah.
Right.
Build the foundation of the building blocks that they need to have. They have. They've mastered it. So.
Track to hit your 100%, just
I
saying,
think
it's
just-
possible, it's
Oh, that
possible.
might just happen.
And they're very competitive down.
Oh, I know she is. I know.
Get to their 100%, and it's truly amazing. They really do know each individual student and what's going on. And, you know, my background 10 years ago was always at the secondary level. I didn't understand the elementary world. I've come around. The first 4 or 5 months in kindergarten are tough. You have kids, like as Cindy said, you have kids who've come from full-day pre-K at 3, full-day pre-K at 4, to students who've never stepped foot in an organized school structure, walking in, and the teachers, along with the paraprofessionals, have to figure out how to differentiate, not for 3 or 4 different groups, but for 18 individual kids, while teaching kids how to put their boots on, take their boots off, tie their shoes, zip up their jackets, order lunch, pick lunch. Like, that's a process the first few weeks of school, the lunch line. No, I mean, it is. It is. And so it's all those skills that they're learning, plus the academics. And we all know, well, we may not know, K isn't what K was 25 years ago. K's the new 1, and 1's the new 2. So again, there's a lot of work that happens down there. And even just looking up over here with a scaled score of, 61% in grade 1 in math, we're almost high growth there. Over 61% if you think of the bell curve, in that top 20% of kids and achievement across the nation is phenomenal. It's a testament to Cindy and her staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Ken, who's coming up, who's going to do ELA and then math. And then if you look at, again, the growth for ELA, second grade, knocking it out of the park in ELA, just almost there at that high growth area. And then for third, fourth, and fifth grade, in that, closer to that upper percentage of typical growth. So again, doing a great job in ELA. So Ken will talk a little bit about the successes that he's seeing, and then what he's recognizing for where we need to move and grow. And he found some pretty startling data when we met a couple weeks ago.
Thank you. One thing I want to just mention, good evening, by the way, is Officer Adam. I thought about this. We are so lucky to have him, and he has an office, like we were able to kind of find a space for him at the school. But it's interesting, like, if I ever need him, like, I was there the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, he has an office here. Like, he's always out, you know what I mean? He could just easily retreat to his office, but he's always just out throughout the building. So that's another wonderful thing about him. There's many, but that speaks to the way he operates. So I just wanted to mention that. Anyway, I'll talk a little bit about some of our, our strengths and some of our, our opportunities to improve. But one thing I did notice when you look at the growth scores is that it's pretty stark, the difference between our growth in ELA and math, right? And it's very different than some of the success that Ms. Sosha has had at the primary. So that's something that we really need to kind of look at, like, why is that, right? ELA is great. I'm very, very pleased. Math is, we're sort of at that typical growth, but it could be better and should be better. So that's one area that we, can focus on. In terms of overall, with some of our pluses, in terms of grade 2, the early literacy scores. They reduced their intervention and their urgent intervention over the course of this year thus far by 30%. That's a pretty significant reduction. Grade 5, they reduced in their percentage of students in math that were not meeting by over 50%. So that's nice to see those kids moving up, right? And then we want to kind of continue that movement. Our grade 3 reading, 85% were at or above. In terms of opportunities for improvement, for grade 3 math, although the percentage of students not meeting was reduced by 30%, so wasn't the percentage of students that were exceeding. So we sort of saw, in one area we saw growth, but then in another area it was kind of shifted. So ultimately, that's something, we need to look at. And similarly, we saw the same thing in grade 4 reading. There was a 10% reduction in the grade 5 reading from exceeding / meeting to not meeting. So we did see a dip there. There was some success with the math, but there in ELA, not so much. And then also the grade 2 math scores demonstrated no movement. So again, the math seems to be a little bit more of a pressing issue where we need to look at more closely. And then to Dr. Vieira's point, something that I noticed by looking at the data is, first of all, I wanted to see what kind of correlation there was with the students that were not performing up to expectations. And if I looked at the early literacy, or if I looked at the literacy scores with the students, one thing I noticed is I actually printed out all of our attendance and just started to go through the scores, and then I started to look at those students that were not meeting. And what I found was that the numbers were pretty startling. 80% of the students that were either in intervention or urgent intervention were either special needs students, EL students, or students with significant attendance issues, right? And then that was a totally consistent pattern. Grade 3, so I'm bundling them, just so you know. So grade 3, 88%, grade 4, 86%, grade 5, 75%. And of that percentage, I'd say half of those were related to attendance. So the proof is in the pudding, and that's, it's not a coincidence when you see that level of consistency. And then with math, similarly, it was 62% grade 2, 71% grade 3, 75% grade 4, and about 90% of the grade 5 students. Again, either special needs students, EL students, or students with attendance issues. So what we've done is we've actually, our SST, our student success team, it's a useful resource. We meet weekly. We're actually now dedicating part of our meeting time to looking at these attendance issues. What I've noticed is, just making some phone calls helps, right? It's interesting when you talk to parents, you make a phone call and just, it's not, you want to do so in kind of with a partnership type approach, right? We're not scolding, we're not judging. It's just like, we want your kid here at school. And I know it's hard, it's tough. Everyone struggles. The mornings are very, very difficult, and but we do seem that seems to help, right? And then so that's just one thing that we as a team are looking to do, and just find ways, sort of sustainable ways, consistent ways, things that we can weave into the school. That's not just the newsletter. Phone calls are nice, but what's going to stay in front of them? So we are, like I said, we're dedicating a portion of our student success team time to working on this attendance issue because it is impacting our scores negatively. So, but it's I was suspicious of it, and these prove those suspicions, but now we know really that it has to be addressed. And we can speak to it informatively and just say, listen, I can tell you, I'm not judging you, but we know that by your child not getting to school at time, he or she is at risk of underperforming. And these are you know what I mean? But it's, again, we try to be supportive and not judgmental. So it's something that we can work on, and we will continue to work on.
Do you notice, I appreciate that you're making the calls in a non-judgmental way, absolutely, but do you notice is there any specific pattern? Like, is there anything, are the kids not coming because transportation's a barrier? Are the kids not coming because there's do we need to try to rally some support for some of these families?
You know, it really is kind of all over the place, right? There's, you know, a lot of, well, whenever a kid can get on, the new thing now is if I can get them to get the kid on the bus, right? It's like it's interesting because it just seems like it would be so much easier. But that's one thing, right? It's like the more kids we can get on the bus, the more kids we can get to school on time, provided they get to the bus stop on time. But it's really just sort of, when you talk to the parents, it's just, life's very busy, and for one challenge or another, sometimes they have one car, shared transportation, things like that. That's why it's you have to be empathetic. And anyway, so, but whatever we can do to support, right? So, and maybe they don't even, you know, again, if they're not riding the bus, trying to encourage them to do so.
I guess my thought process was kind of the same. Like, are we seeing, it feels like illness this winter was rampant, not just in Douglas, across the board. I'm still hearing of pneumonia, you know, this far out.
Yep.
I think statewide, I think I heard it on national news the other day that they can't get students in the classroom nationally. So I guess, do we have any other indication of?
So we know that people have been sick. Like, you hear the spike, you see the spike, you see it from teachers. Some of it just, people are sick. Some of it too is just like we talked about, life. It's easy when a kid says, hey, Mom, can I stay home today? One day turns into two turns into three turns into 6. Next thing you know, you've missed 8-9 days, and it's easy to get that cycle going. Some of it's transportation. You know, Ken and I dove a little bit into it when we met, and it really is all over the map. I think the big thing is just calling the parent and having that conversation, like, hey, just want to check in, everything okay? Do you know that we're on day 110, and, you know, little Meg has missed 9 days of school, and when you throw that number out there, 9 days, 10%, it's like, oh geez, I didn't realize that. And you can quickly, it's like your Visa bill, you can quickly start building it up until you look at it, right, or your Amazon cart. And it piles up and it gets there really quick. So sometimes it's just that conversation with the parent as a, hey, what do you need? Or that fodder for the parent to be able to tell the child, hey, Mr. Haynes called me yesterday or last week about you being in school. You don't want to disappoint him, you have to get to school. That can start getting kids to come in. And again, it's really tough when you're not in school, you can't learn. You come back, you got to make the time up, then all of a sudden you get sick, or mom's sick, or dad's sick, and they can't drive you, and those days pile up fast. And like as Ken said, we dove into it. You know, he has anywhere between 15 and 30 kids in that area. Half of them are because of chronic absenteeism or close to being chronically absent. So capturing those students, having them come to school, or trying to see what we can do on the flip side to reach out when they are home and say, hey, here's Google Classroom, here's something you can do at home, here's something you can do to catch up. Instead of putting them in front of the iPad to watch YouTube videos, here's some work that you can do. So again, he's trying different things through his SST team to try to address it.
Yeah, maybe too, the teachers sending that home,
Yeah.
because we've had our own absentee because of sickness and all that stuff. And sometimes you just have to hear from the teacher because the kids, I think it's very overwhelming for them to deal with all of that. But if the parent can, hey, here's your Google Classroom for the day, you know.
But about the sickness thing, I mean, we had to cancel one of our community meetings because so many kids were sick. And Nurse Mal, who is like the most, you know, down-to-earth, like skilled and, you know, not an alarmist at all, but very proficient on top of things, was like, Ken, we should cancel this. And for her to step up and say that, that was when it became very apparent. So yes, but hopefully, it seems like it's, well, I don't want to say because I'll get sick if I do. Anyway, so. Any questions?
So I do have a question. So if we've identified, are they able to take home their Chromebook? I'm assuming it's Chromebook. For the children that are chronically absent, so they have access to be able to get the curriculum, right?
We typically don't have the kids take their
Yeah,
devices.
so I mean, that might be an area where we'd look into, right? So that they can plug and play, right? Because
Do all teachers have like a Google Classroom for their classes as well?
They do, but it's the device, but having access to the device.
You need
but-
you need the Chromebook. So, I mean, I think that's something that maybe we should be looking at is having that as their backup so that they know that it's there. Now, whether they'll use it or not, that's a different story, right? But I think, because most kids want to be there. If there's obstacles that they have that they can't, through no fault of their own, but at least if they had that, I mean, I know that, the responsibility is on the parent or the guardian, should something happen to it, but I think that might be an area where we should be looking at just for, how do we make sure we have safeguards in place?
I think also maybe like an information campaign for parents, right?
Yep.
Like, just so you know, your kid might not be in school, but that doesn't mean, and honestly, I think a lot of parents would probably appreciate knowing that because it's, hey, you turn that TV off or get off that phone and I know you can access this stuff, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a way to not punish the child, but at the same time, because some of our kids, they like to be in school, but no fault of their own, they can't get there.
Well, and you don't have the advantage of the power school as in the same way that the middle school does, because like as a parent, we get updates literally as they're getting graded on stuff, so we
Yeah.
can see it come through.
Yeah.
In the elementary school, the parents just don't have visibility to that.
True, yep.
So, little
I know,
action
You're,
item.
you're in like the hardest position. of all of
Let
us.
it, having them know that that is accessible to their kid, because maybe some people just assume, oh, he's not in school today, she's not in school today, there's no work for them, but when in fact they can access it. So,
Right, it's
Yeah.
just,
it's a good point, so, yeah. Like,
you have your hands full, I know that.
well, I will say, when I do talk to the parents in those situations, I enjoy it's a way to connect. It's another, and so, anyway, though, and it does seem to work, so I want to make
There
more.
are challenges in our community, and everybody's being challenged in one way, shape, or form.
Across the entire country.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yep. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Mr. O'Brien from the middle school. And again, as he comes up, if you look at his ELA data, again, smack dab in the middle of that typical growth, 6th grade 49%, 7th grade 55%, 8th grade 53%. And then for math, 6th grade 68% in that high growth. And then in 7th and 8th grade 51%, smack dab in the middle. And again, I know I said at the beginning, but just to reiterate, this is based off of an assessment that students took in January. It's been 2 months since they last took it, so obviously there's been growth from January through mid-March, but this is based on scores in mid-January.
Thank you. It's been extremely frustrating to see the staff work so hard and then to see the results come back not where we expected them. And to have a lot of self-reflection and figure out why are we getting things that we should be getting with the students. Across school-wide, in ELA, we have 24 students. In math, we have 26 that are not making, not meeting expectation, or if it was compared to the MCAS, 6 through 8. Of that, though, 38% are chronically absent. It's tough to blame a middle school student for being absent when they can't get themselves to school. We did see an increase in the winter, as everyone else has. We have chronically absent students, but compared to where they were before, they're doing much better, but they're chronically absent or on their way there. And again, we reach out to the parent, what can we do? And sometimes it depends which parent you reach out to which parent you get some success. And again, we're always there to assist them. What do you need from us? What can we do? Come in before school, after school, come in on Saturday, get the kid through the door. But of course, if you don't show up, it's very tough. So that's, of those numbers in the red, though, we had 30% that were identified as receiving new services this school year. And when we go through looking for data for whether a student is on an IEP or not, or needs more advanced services, OG reading or Gillingham reading, or small group classes. This is another data point that we can use to assist that student to get them to grow. On some good news, in 6th grade, we're down to only 4% not meeting expectation in math. And that was at the mid-year mark. For not meeting for partially meeting expectation, we're looking at 49 students school-wide not meeting expectations, which is 52%. And if you look at the graph, that would be the number of the folks in the yellow. We realize that 27%, mostly 7th and 8th graders, 6th graders, they still want to make their teachers happy. 7th and 8th graders are challenged. 27% rush through the test. You look at it.
They figured it out. They cracked the code. They know it. Yep.
So what is this, and how do we have them create that buy-in to not only take the test, but get that intrinsic value of, all right, let's see if I can beat my last score. And I think projects like what Mrs. Hayes is doing is outstanding in reading, and how do we have that overflow to the classroom and the test taking. We do have students with test anxiety, which is a part. And on the partially meeting, that's 34% are on their way to chronic absenteeism. In reading, 41% are on their way to chronic absenteeism. 37% of our students that stayed in the yellow, though, we saw growth in that. So they might not have jumped from one area of, from one partially meeting to meeting, but within that, knowing that the test gets harder as it goes through the year, we did see a 37% increase in what they knew. So it just wasn't in the exact colors of the graph. Other things that we noticed looking at the data was move-in students that we don't really know, move-in students that have complex IEPs. And when you're dealing with this few numbers and percentages, I want to just be real careful not to identify anyone.
Thank you.
Some of our successes, and this is where you kind of scratch your head. In a 6th grade inclusion class, the student growth went up, I just had it here, my apologies, 74%. Teaching the same lesson to a different class, it went up 23%. So digging in deep, how do we get better? Well, we have to have more finely tuned ISSPs for those teachers. And to find out, sometimes they'll create a great plan and it doesn't work. Okay, let's go back, let's try again, let's try something else because this isn't clearly working. But what is important about the map and STAR data, at least we're seeing it now, and we can make corrections before the end of the year when they do have to do the MCAS. But our teachers know the students by name, know what they have to do. They're working hard with them. They want to see them, of course, be successful. Some students went incredibly, individual student success was amazing. I wish I could say he went from a yellow to a blue, spectacular. And we did have a small group that dipped down. Of that, 20 of the 29 students in the 8th grade that went down finished the test in under 20 minutes. Yep. So that is a challenge. Those are the numbers I know the teachers are not happy with, and I jump back and forth from math and ELA. But that's what our teachers are doing, and we'll continue to support them. We're not dealing with widgets. It's a little more complex, and I think if we had all the answers, every school would be exceeding expectations.
I just want to reiterate, like, not just to you, but to all the principals and their staff, like, we understand this is like one part of all the things that we measure on our students. We know that we have teachers that work extremely hard. We know we have staff that works extremely hard. Having the kids love reading, having the kids love a book club, having them feel talking to other kids and other teachers, that will show somewhere. It might not show in this, but that's going to show somewhere. That's what matters.
And we've had students that moved up in an entire benchmark in a short period of time, which is a testimony to the educators, the teachers, and staff.
I think you and I both know a student, right, that had to retake their test many times because, yep, I got through it. It's time for recess. I gotta go. I want to go to gym. That's just where they are right now. Like, that's just the age.
I know, I'm like, can you bribe them? I guess that's not an
I'm like,
option,
can we
right?
make a
Mr. Rangel will talk
competition?
about that in a minute.
Can we make a competition? Like,
Right,
can
I
we
was,
make
I'm
a
like, if you made
competition?
it competitive, they would sit in the chair, because they're all, when the kids were talking about the Winter Olympics, I'm like, oh God bless everyone, because they're so competitive.
Yeah. But, yeah,
Can we turn this into Winter Olympics? They'd be all in, you know?
Star Olympic.
You have to
Right?
get, you have to get the buy-in, right? Because I think we all know that our kids, you have the ones that are the overachievers, the ones that are just doing the bare minimum, and, okay, how fast? That's my competition, is can I beat my peer? Yes, I can. Challenge accepted.
Yes, A, B, C.
So, I appreciate, because you are in a rock and a hard place, my friend, with all the stuff that goes on at the middle school. And so, like I said, between the administrative staff, the teachers, and the community that comes into the building, it's huge, right? And so it's just a measurement.
Was this middle school's first year star? Was this?
Used to be NWA or
Yeah,
MAP
so this is
testing.
your first year with this
It's our
testing.
first year with STAR.
Yeah.
The benefit of it, it's much quicker.
Yeah.
Doesn't take half the day. And some teachers are going to do another quick one right before, in a couple of weeks, just to see, because they want to know the knowledge of where the kid's at. Some other teachers feel like that there's a certain threshold of how much testing we can do. We want to keep them fresh for MCAS, and I trust the staff to make those decisions at that time.
And to your point, middle school can take their Chromebooks home, right? Or is that a no?
Yes, they can take it home, but depending on the student. If
Yeah.
they're on their third Chromebook that was broken at home, we'll try not to.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they contact me. I work with Mr. LaFerrier, and we let the student take their Chromebook home.
I guess I was thinking for the chronically absent
Yeah,
in
I
those
think
phone
that's
calls.
just an opportunity there that we might be missing, because again,
And some of it, too, is the students that legitimately have medical issues that they cannot be in school.
Yep.
And some of it is not life or death. It's one knee surgery, concussion
Yep.
after the
Yep,
other,
yep,
and
I
it adds up pretty quickly.
I had one.
But it's nice also to see those students come back, and I know we're working on a plan that you'll see later, and become successful after that absence, is working with the teachers, working with the staff in rebounding from those absences.
The staff does a wonderful job, I will say that. So, I mean, again, it's just a measurement
It's,
of time.
and I've said that 100 times, it's one tool in 100, but it helps to create a snapshot as to the why. And many times, once you can figure out the why as to what is, like, the literacy circles are great to be able to have kids connect with teachers they may not necessarily have the ability to connect with in a different manner. Maybe spark something that may not spark, or maybe allows for a child to open up to a teacher that they may not typically open up to then send them down a path. So again, the fact that a lot of the principals have identified absenteeism as an issue, that should then be, okay, hey, look, at the end of the week, as a teacher, I'm gonna call home every kid that was absent, or send a note or an email home to every parent, hey, we missed Paul in school this week, hope to have him back. Even something like that, to be cognizant of it, can be helpful in having kids come to school.
Then you get the outliers of a student who finished it 12 minutes faster than the beginning of the year test that went up 2 levels. Okay, what were you hiding from us? Were you hiding us?
Or they guessed really,
One of the issues with this test, though, it is multiple choice.
Yep.
So it's tough, the open-ended questions that they'll handle with MCAS, and that's what the teachers handle themselves in the classroom, too. So it's more than, it's a little MCAS light. You know, one last thing, I apologize. If you compare us, the state of Massachusetts standards are so high compared to the rest of the nation. I believe there's a slide in there where it says district to state. We will have students that on the not meeting, but performing at 10th grade level, because it's measured against the entire
The
nation.
national level, yeah.
So they get their education there in Massachusetts.
Yes, we do.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
the high school is interesting when you look at the numbers. Rob will come up, and as he's walking up, for ELA, we didn't test for our advanced placement students. Ninth grade, we were at 38%, 10th grade, 49, 11th grade, 48, and 12th grade, 49. Math only went up to Algebra 2, so it's basically freshmen and sophomores with a smidge of juniors. And what Rob found much more pronounced at the middle school was that motivation piece, where you went from a large percentage of kids who spent 30 minutes in September to 7, 8, 9 minutes. 3, 4 minutes
Under 6.
in January. So that's part of the dip. But again, Rob will talk about, again, this is the first time we've done it at the high school, and Rob will talk about the successes and again, what he found with the data. And the big part of it is motivating a junior to take a test that they know, and you can't sugarcoat that with a 17-year-old.
Yep, been there, done that.
Rob?
All right, so obviously I'm going to start with the good news for us. At the high school, a lot of our students who are on IEPs showed much greater successes than those that actually are not on IEPs, which was nice to see. In ELA, I kind of did a small analysis of students who scored 50 or more points higher from test to test. 13 of the students that were able to do that were on IEPs, with the maximum being 107 points in ELA. So they were able to score 107 points higher in ELA than they did the previous time. And then in math, it's even higher. The highest increase for any of our IEP-based students or special needs students was 279 points. So to me, if I look at that information alone, it shows the work that those teachers are doing, especially in those inclusion-based classes, whether it be Ms. DePaula or Ms. Benincasa, Mr. Reardon, Mrs. Zabicki, Mrs. Mayo. I won't want to forget anybody, so so Mrs. Novicki, Mrs. Petrelli, Mrs. Mulligan, like, they all are really putting it, like, it's evident when you see a splattering of that, where students who are on IEPs are still able to show significant levels of success, I would say. And there were more students who were on IEPs that didn't quite reach that 50 threshold that I didn't count. They were at 48, 47. And I was like, you know what? They didn't make the 50. I'm not gonna put them in this data point. But at the same time, that shows that, yes, it's easy to see that the teachers are doing what they're supposed to be doing on that end and on the educational end. So those are nice data points to have, because it tells its own story. It does tell its own story. Obviously, our grades 9 and 10 math were our highest
improving grades. It basically includes the entire grade for grades 9 and 10, as we don't have anybody that's really outside of Algebra 2 yet, and we don't have anybody that is in any AP ELA or AP Math classes yet. So, so those grade 9 and 10 scores are probably indicative of grades 9 and 10 right now. 11 shallow, again, because some of those students are taking those AP classes. So really, you're getting a sampling of our college prep ELA classes. You're getting a sampling for grades 11 and 12, and you're getting a sampling of essentially our college prep Algebra 2 class as well, to kind of, for your higher level grades. Enough of the good news. All right, so as Dr. Vieira has hinted, we saw a significant decrease in time spent on our STAR testing in January, where we had a large group of students finish the exam in under 6 minutes. Exactly.
Gold star.
If this was the 100-meter dash, then yeah, we'd be looking for a shorter times here. This isn't the 100-meter dash in any way, shape, or form. So we have some work to do, obviously in the motivational piece. It's our highest need, because when you look across the board, I identified about 30 students right off the bat that scored well in the green the first time, and they spent maybe 23 minutes or so on average to do that first assessment, the pre-assessment, and then they significantly dropped by just not putting in what I would call an honest effort. I always tell the students in the school, I said, sometimes I'm not going to get your best effort, sometimes I'm not going to get your worst effort. I just need an honest effort from you. Because an honest effort will kind of give us where you are in the middle at each time. So we have some work to do there. One of the, when I spoke with teachers and spoke with students, the most common feedback I got was that there's no direct rewards or consequences related to their grades.
Yep. High schoolers are smart. They figure that out quickly.
Right. And a lot of our, and our students are thinking, especially at that junior, senior level, they're thinking graduation, they're thinking post-graduation. What do each of these look like? How am I going to get there? So that's something that the teachers and I will be discussing as to what can we do for them. Obviously, I can't give a grand prize to the person with the highest growth type of deal of, here's your $100 Amazon gift card. We obviously can't do stuff like that.
But could
However,
you
we
do
have,
lunch with Finn? Just thinking,
Right.
It was very
we'll
popular.
look at ways to incentivize
campus
this on a certain level, and move on from there. So that way, again, so our students will be at least giving it an honest effort.
Can you involve some of the students in your conversation with the teachers? Because I think, I still have somebody that I'm very close to that was probably a 6-minute, if I'm lucky, test taker. But to understand, it's this goes to what we're going to teach you. To talk, they still might not have the motivation to do that, but you want the juniors to do their best so that you don't have to learn boring stuff. You can learn better. You can learn different stuff.
Yeah, that's actually part of the process, is to make sure that all voices are heard and all opinions are taken in. See what we can come up with. Good news-ish. A lot of, I say ish, it's all relative. A lot of our previously targeted students showed increases, which was a bonus for us. It gave us a new target group, which is also, good and bad. It means that, okay, so the students we did target on, they focused on, they, did show improvement. However, there were a handful of students that did slip through the cracks at the same time. So we had 10 identified students that didn't quite show any growth in any way, shape, or form. They stayed at that, they started off as kind of a low growth, low proficiency, and they ended as a low growth proficiency without any real change in their data. So those students have been identified. I know that some of them are working with the counseling department fairly regularly, going through some social emotional things. So I'm sure that has a role in their education and how they performed. So
The teachers identified anything because, like on the ISSPs, because this is just one part of it. So I'm sure the teachers are really, I know we've heard that, in other schools, they're really embracing this process. So, are the teachers able to kind of look at all the different things through that process and see, okay, maybe Beth didn't have any growth in anything on her STAR, but you know what? She showed up at school every day. Or she, I don't know, didn't get sent to the principal's office. Can they see, are they looking at that through that lens?
we do have some of that. Some of our teachers are more proficient at that than others. They definitely have more of an more of a worldly view of their students. Some of our teachers are more hyper-focused on what's happening within their walls, which is, again, pros and cons. And those teachers, what's nice about those teachers, that some of them that I'm thinking about that are those hyper-focused, they provide so much feedback to their students and throughout so many different formative assessments that they can pick a kid out of their class and say, all right, this one can do this, this, and this, but needs this, this, and this for prompting, and knows it just like that, just right off the top of their head without any question. So, so again, work in progress, and getting everybody to see that more global view, but showing, that, again, that we have students that are showing levels of success, giving that honest effort that, prove to at least me, and that they are teaching the material as needed, that they are reaching those students, that they are removing barriers, that they are doing the things necessary through the MTSS UDL lens. So.
Is your absenteeism down with your new policy?
Yes. We're actually very excited.
What's our attendance percentage?
Right now, I literally just had it up. I believe it read 23% that were on pace to be chronically absent, which is down from last year. During March last time, we were into the 30s already, so.
Significant.
Yeah. So, making steps. And we'll speak, I think, more to that a little bit later tonight, so.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, I want to update the committee in the community on our proposed budget and where we're at prior to our public hearing next week. And just wait for Jake to put that slide deck up for us. He's bouncing around from remote to remote. So when we last met, our last meeting was in early April. We've done a little bit of work. Some of it's represented here. The bulk of it you'll see at a public hearing in 2 weeks on the budget. Thank you, Jake. So, again, it's a similar slide deck to what you've seen that talks about the preliminary proposed budget. Our mission statement, which is at the forefront of what we do, our blueprint of what we value and what we prioritize. And our goal is and has been to provide a real needs budget for FY '26 fiscal year. We highlighted these major budget drivers for last year to refresh people's memories, or for those watching for the first time. These are the big buckets that really drove our budget from '25 to '26. Salaries and wages, including honorarium, longevity, steps, lanes, COLA, made up 6.6% of the budget increases. Compensation such as subs, overtime stipends, that was 3.17%. Contractual services, not including special education or building maintenance, went up 5.9%. Supplies, textbooks, memberships, miscellaneous went up 25%. Custodian, equipment, building maintenance, which is surprising, 12.75%. Utilities went up 2.57%. Courtney and I can't figure out why we can't get that to align, that line of utilities with the 17 sliding over. Special education, medical and therapeutic went up 3.26%. Our regular ed transportation went up $64,000 or 6.1%. And then our in-district and out-of-district special education transportation costs went up 44%. And that was as a result of an increase in students who qualified and needed that out-of-district placement. The other significant budget driver, which we talked about, and as I said at previous meetings, is we had a percentage of students that had to be placed out because we couldn't service their unique needs here in schools. And we'll touch a little bit upon that at the last bullet item in my report later on tonight, but we had to send the students out. That cost us approximately $635,000. The mechanism that we used to fund that was our circuit breaker. So we took down circuit breaker, practically projected next to zero, so the ability to carry over any funds from 25 to 26 for circuit breaker to offset the FY '26 budget wasn't there. Some of the things we've done that we'll share now for the budget is, last year we asked for in addition of a 1.0 custodian grounds for $45,000. We've been advertising that position for the past year plus, and we haven't had any bites on it. So we're proposing to eliminate that. We made adjustments to line items and to stipends for $80,000. We were not able to find an athletic trainer, so we eliminated the $35,000. And then going through line item by line item and reductions was an additional $48,000 for a total of $209,000. So where does that bring us as of today? We are still a hair over $1 million short in getting down to our FY '26 appropriation, which is a 10% or an 10.8% increase from what we need to do. We need to close that over the next 2 weeks, and we will. I know that sounds like a short amount of time to close $1 million, but Courtney and I have been working behind the scenes for it. So there's three buckets, three ways we're going to do that. The first is through additional line item review. Anyone who's been in Douglas for more than 15 years and looked at our budget is, we leave in technology, we leave in computers, we leave in textbooks to the very, very, very last possible minute. And then what we do at the end is we remove that from the budget, and as Courtney says, we cross our fingers and hope that when we close the books out in July, that there's a surplus for us to be able to then bring those textbooks and those computers back in. So that's the line item analysis that we do, and we're holding out hope for what may happen. We also have the potential use of additional revolving funds. As we get closer to the end of the year and our risk gets smaller and smaller, we're more comfortable using those revolving funds i.e. school choice, to help offset the budget. I was watching the news on Sunday, and this is one of the warmest Marches we've had in years, just a hair above that, the average temperature per day, which then allows us to keep our heat a little bit lower, which allows us to save money. So we're going to be looking at those revolving funds. And then, unfortunately, for the first time in 3 or 4 years, in order for us to close that delta, we will have to look at staff reductions. And we're leaving that for the very end, because that is obviously always our last choice. And the more we can do through line item analysis, the more we can do through revolving funds, the less reduction we need to do in staff. As we're looking at staff reductions, we're looking at doing it through attrition, meaning people who are retiring or leaving and not filling those positions. We're looking at doing it through through positions that are currently unfilled. And then the third thing is we're looking at, if it ends up having to actually be a person, is we're looking at where that's going to have the least significant impact on the student body population and really minimizing the programming that we offer to students. And we're going to do that at April 2nd because, again, one, we don't want to cause alarm now and say, oh my gosh, we have to cut, I'm not even going to put a number to it, a number, and then realize that, hey, we were able to reduce more, or this grant came in higher over the past 2 weeks than we expected, or we're more comfortable doing, using revolving funds. We have a meeting set up on Tuesday with Mr. Wojcik, and what he has said is any savings from the town for the educational piece of the budget, he will allocate back to the schools, which is great. The problem is we won't know what that is until July or August. So the mechanism that we would get for that would be an additional appropriation that would come at our fall town meeting in November, which doesn't help us when you're talking about staff, which doesn't help us when you're talking about textbooks. Where it would help us is our comfort level in using more from school choice, knowing that there's a mechanism that could get replenished back in November, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. We have that meeting on Tuesday with Mr. Wojcik. And then for our next steps, we have a public hearing with the Finance Committee that's coming up. We have a public hearing here with the school committee on April 2nd. I believe the Finance Committee is the 7th or the 8th of April, whatever that Tuesday, Wednesday is after, I think it's the 8th. And then our annual town meeting, which is May 5th.
Do all the principals have, or can you start making sure you have the announcement for the public hearing in your newsletters for families?
We'll send that out.
Yeah, the public hearing is April 8th.
Okay. So that's an update. And again, what we've tried to do, and Courtney's been here for 13 years, this is my 5th or 6th budget, is waiting to that end for school choice and that line item analysis, because a lot happens in these last 2 weeks. And again, we want to utilize those resources and to get the budget down to zero versus having to cut or reduce staff, because that is our last resort. So we're waiting to see what we can do over the next few weeks for that to happen. Questions? The fifth thing on my report tonight is a communication survey, which I'll have Jake put up. We did a survey as to how we can better communicate with families or communicate differently. And again, it's about 70 slides deep. We're not going to go through each of the slides. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a sampling of what the questions look like at each school, then go through our action plan at the end by buildings. Like would be expected, we had the most responses from families, I think 77 at the primary school. And as we went up by grade level, the responses numbers dwindled down. So just for people to see what the questions were for it. So the first question was, what's your first preference for critical communication, updates, alerts? And to my surprise and to a lot of our surprise, over 90% of the families wanted a text message. They didn't want an email, they didn't want a call, they wanted a text message. So we've started utilizing the text message feature of the one call. Cindy's like, it only limits me to 150 characters, so I have to be really succinct, and she doesn't like that.
Check your email now.
But we've started doing the text messaging feature because people just want to see that, if it's critical, send it to me via email. Secondly, for general communication, stories, announcements, reminders, links to important events, people still prefer email as the way to do it. So again, we're striking that balance with critical information via text, the regular stuff via email. The website, how often do you visit the school website? We're running about half the parents visiting it occasionally. We're upgrading our website. We have a back end through PowerSchool that we've been using with our website. We're updating to Apogee. Dom's been working on that with Jake. We just signed the contract with them, I think, at the end of February. So we'll have a new website coming up in July 1. It's not going to look massively different, but the functionality and the use of it's going to be tremendously different. One of the issues with this current website is, for instance, if Cindy changes something on her calendar in the primary school, it doesn't populate to all the other calendars. She has to then go and change it to our calendar. If she has a message on one of her pages and changes it on one page, and it's on multiple pages on a website, she has to change it on the 6 or 7 different pages, and that's the same for everyone. So this new program will make it easier for us to do those changes. It also integrates PowerSchool into it. It allows parents to be able to customize what alerts they get through it. So, for instance, if you want an alert every time a teacher upgrades their curriculum on Rubicon Atlas, you can get that alert sent to you. So we're excited about updating our website. Do you feel well-informed of important school information, school events, field trips, athletics, conferences? And you can see, by and large, and again, this kind of varied building to building, but in Cindy's building, 87% of the parents felt well-informed. Question 5 was a list and a sample of ways that we can improve communication. Question 6 was, do you feel you are informed about important information regarding your child's student when it came to grades, assignments, projects? And again, at the elementary school, we were at 91% felt they did. That fluctuated as we moved up in grade levels. And then parents gave ideas as to how we can communicate differently or improve communication. And again, you have a sample out there. I'm going to post a copy of the survey on the website for people to be able to read and see and get to. And then question 8 is, do you feel that the school is receptive when you reach out to them with a question? And again, the majority of the parents said yes. I'm going to fast forward to the end, because what I asked each of the principals to do was, looking at your data, looking at your responses, what can you do differently to better communication, to better communicate with families? So again, everyone has up there the use of text messages for important information from the website. We're going to start using this. We might even have to dial into ChatGPT, Cindy, to take your 400 characters and ask ChatGPT to condense that to 150 and do that. We are going to use a new website that's more user-friendly and streamlined. For the primary school, Cindy's going to continue sending home those informational flyers as well as post events in the weekly newsletter. It was interesting, I was talking to Cindy today, and it's amazing that even though she emails it out, puts a hard copy, and then I think calls people home about it, she's still getting calls to say, hey, what time is that event later on this week, even though we push it out 3 different ways, and we're all guilty of doing that, right? 2, sharing information to families and caregivers about students, reminding parents of classroom Google Docs available. So just that reminder to families that Google Docs is available, sharing that out, pushing it out, so families have the ability to go back and look. And again, that happy email, happy postcards that families got is great. And then again, to continue to build that culture and climate is to offer those family events per grade level, and to continue to post pictures of blogs for parents so parents can see what's going on. At the elementary school, it's continuing with that newsletter and that flyer outreach. It's utilizing the one call of the whole school, or even getting down sometimes to just being able to use it per grade level. A lot of times we send that one call out just for the entire school, but we can utilize that by grade level and have that feature. Calling families directly to convey concerns. I don't know why we've gone away from the phone call. Sometimes, and we talked about it today with attendance, but getting back to picking up the phone and calling people versus the email, or versus the newsletter. I know people get fearful sometimes picking up calling, but you can accomplish a lot with a 5-minute phone call to families. Administration, communicating, collaborating with staff regarding different ways that we can communicate with families to support struggling students. Working with the PTO, which is phenomenal at the primary and the elementary school. They do a great job. And then continuing to figure out ways to bring people in, guest author nights, related arts nights. Whenever I go, or Cindy and Ken talk about the after-school night events they have, they're packed. They're packed. So the more we can find ways to bring people in, the better. And then through that, you have different ways to have organic communication. Bob at the middle school is looking at posting upcoming events to Power School so parents can get that alert, using the text message feature, working with IT on updating the website information listed. Again, it's funny when I look at the website and I go back and I check, and I've had Lauren do it. You're like, oh, I just updated that a couple months ago, and then I look and it was like 4 years ago, and you just forget. I think we finally took down some of our COVID stuff that we had up there, because you have to be reminded to go back and look at that. Bob's looking to extend his coffee bean hours to include early evenings as a different way. And then, because we are in that short burst of communication, is maybe shortening the newsletters to tangible information versus long narratives, because people are more apt to read quick little sound bites than they are to read full.
Although who did that? Somebody did the calendar. I think it was you. Did you put you put all the dates at the top? Somebody did. It could have been Bob. I can't remember, but there was dates bulleted at the top, and I was like, oh, dates, do I have all of these? Like, that was helpful.
And then again, the high school's very similar with things. The emails, invite teachers to send newsletters like Miss Malo does. For those of us who don't have Mrs. Malo, what does that mean? Yeah, please.
So Mrs. Malo, she is our librarian, all right? She also teaches a few of our classes, AP Seminar and AP Research. She works as part of our Tier 2 interventionist as well at times. So she wears a lot of hats, all right? And has foundational knowledge, as she is a former graduate of here. I believe she's a former valedictorian.
She was.
Here. Yeah, and has just an unbelievable knowledge range. So what she does is, for all of her students, she literally sends home a newsletter to every week, just saying, you know, this is what we've been doing, this is what we are doing, this is what's expected, these are some important dates. It's fairly quick and painless, almost like a one-pager, and very helpful for families to kind of pick up, look at it real quick and say, yep, I know what's going on.
So again, just trying some different ideas based off of the feedback from the survey that we received. And again, if we can engage with each of these 2 or 3 different families, we have 6 or 7 ideas. There's 15, 20 families that you can engage per grade level. You keep on building on that year after year after year. You can engage families in different ways. So I'm thankful for the community who took the time to fill out the survey. I'm grateful to the principals who took the time to go through all the responses and the answers and be a little reflective as to what we can be doing differently inside each of the buildings. And it's tough. We know, those of us who've had high school kiddos, they don't share information with us.
Even in the middle school.
And even though we share it with them inside the school, what they hear and choose to retain and share back often varies dramatically based on who your child is. So, like, again, I had a son who played football who forgot what his games were, even though they were every Friday night. So,
Exactly.
you know, so, like, I get it. I get it. And so again, any way we can do to push information out. And again, Power School's awesome. Power School parents are getting the alert, but it's also picking up the phone call, calling home, doing that email, letting people know. And it's amazing how far that power of a phone call goes. I mean, we saw it firsthand with Cindy, and it happens everywhere, but just those postcards people get, they get wicked excited. They get really excited for that post call. So I'm thankful for everyone. Any questions on that survey?
I think it's insightful to see what the community, how they want to reach the community, right? So I think that's great.
Yeah. And again, the texting surprised me. So that's where we're at. Next, we have two policies to go over. The first one's the first reading of the school camera policy, ECAF. As we talked about earlier, we are installing cameras in our schools. We've had cameras in the buildings for 10, 15 years. We've added additional cameras, and through conversations with various people, the school committee did not have a policy on security cameras in schools, and we needed a policy. So this policy came from our attorney, Greg Pagnini, and it came from the sample language that the Massachusetts School Committee Association recommends for camera policy. I know this is going to be lengthy, but I'm just going to read it for those who are at home watching, for people to understand and see what's involved in our camera policy, why we have it, and it's just to make sure that our expectations are clear and people understand what we can and what we can't do and why we're using these cameras. So, school committee works to maintain a safe and secure environment for its students, staff, visitors, and facilities. Security means more than having locks and making certain that doors are locked at proper times. Security also means minimizing fire hazards, reducing faulty equipment, keeping records and valuables in a safe place, protection against vandalism, burglary, the prosecution of vandals, and developing crisis plans. School facilities and their contents constitute one of the greatest investments of the community. School committee believes it's in the best interest of students and taxpayers for the district to exert every reasonable means to protect the investment adequately. In pursuit of this objective, the school committee authorizes the use of security cameras in school district buildings and on its property to ensure the health, welfare, and safety of all students, staff, and visitors, to deter theft, vandalism, and other negative behavior, to safeguard district buildings, grounds, and equipment, and to monitor unauthorized individuals in or on school property. Security cameras may be used in locations as deemed appropriate by the superintendent of schools in consultation with school officials, as well as local law enforcement and emergency response agencies. They may be used in area inside or outside of the school buildings where there is no reasonable expectation of privacy. The district shall notify students and staff through student and employee handbooks and appropriate signage that security cameras have been installed and may be used at any time. Students or staff identified on security cameras in violation of school committee policies will be subject to disciplinary action. Superintendent shall ensure that proper procedures are in place and followed regarding use, viewing, disclosure, retention, disposal, and security of video recordings or photographs from security cameras in accordance with applicable laws and regulations. A video recording used for security purposes in school buildings and/or school property shall be the sole property of the school district. All video recordings will be stored in their original format and secured to avoid tampering and to ensure confidentiality in accordance with applicable laws and regulations. Access to video recordings from security cameras shall be limited to school administrators. superintendent designee, school principal designee, law enforcement, and emergency response officials shall be granted access to video recordings or the security system after given prior notice to the superintendent or their designee. The superintendent may, from time to time, issue further guidance that is consistent with the laws and this policy. So what does that mean? We have cameras in place. We have cameras out in public places. They're not in a place where people would expect a reasonable expectation of privacy, meaning they're not in locker rooms, they're not in bathrooms, they're in hallways, they're in public spaces. We don't have, the principals, the deans, the assistant principals, do not have the time to sit there to watch cameras all day long for fun. They just don't. The cameras are there, so if something happens, we can go back and we can refer to it. We're lucky that our police department has access to the system, that if there's ever a crisis in the building and they respond, they have eyes inside the building before they're walking into a crisis scenario. We store the material in a safe, secure manner in the cloud, and then after 30, I think it's 30 days, after 30 days, we have the training, I believe it's tomorrow, after 30 days, the video recordings get destroyed. And we didn't have a policy, and we needed a policy in place. So this is our first reading of that policy.
I had a couple things come to mind.
Sure.
The kids who came here tonight said we have 90 kids that are participating in track coming up. Will all those kids have access to a locker room at the middle school? And the reason I ask is because if they had to send all the boys in the gym, you got to change in the gym. Do you know what I mean? I'm just kind of like, do we have the space for 90 kids to change?
Bob, how do you handle that? Well, first off, it's 45-40. It's on 180.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I know,
How
but
do you
I'm
handle
like,
the lock? How do you,
How small the locker
have you
rooms are.
right. I'm like the lock, right?
How have you handled the locker rooms for track last year when we had those numbers?
It is way too small, so what we do is we have different students using different bathrooms throughout the building where they feel comfortable changing.
Okay.
So-
But we're not gonna say, okay, all the boys in the gym, like, and we've got recordings and,
No.
okay. And then, this is random, but it actually came up in something that my kids do. When the school has guests come, do we have to disclose that we have cameras? I asked that just in the same situation, if we had a visiting team come in, and I don't know if they had to change, whatever, do we have to disclose to them, like, hey, there's recordings going on at our school? I don't know. I'm saying that as someone who had to sign a waiver recently.
Or is signage
Around the
enough?
Oh, yeah, do we have
There's
enough signage?
I'll have to look at the signage. I know, that's actually a good question. We don't have, we probably need to add more signage in our public spots, such as the hallways, the main entrance, the cafeteria, the library, the gym, and the auditorium, so people at least know when they're coming in that we have it. I don't know if we have to disclose it, but that's a good question.
Yeah, I only,
Yeah.
dance mom, we go into schools all the time, and the kids are changing, so we have to sign, you know what I mean? I don't think Douglas hosts anything like that, but I don't know, if we had a drama club, I have no idea.
Yeah, we don't have it in, we do not have any of the cameras anywhere remotely near bathroom.
Right. But I'm saying,
But
if you had to throw kids into a situation where, we're all over a cafeteria.
But I'm going back to my days of
But they're
my
done that.
my daughter dancing and then having the cameras inside. Because I know hallways and backstage and cafeterias are a big spot where
Right.
kids change. So how do you do that? I'll look into that. That's a good
Okay.
question.
And last one, which was my pause at the beginning. Okay, so you said they're erased after 30 days.
Is it, Jake, do you know, is it 30, is it 45? We have the training tomorrow.
think after 30 days, it's overwritten.
Okay.
Okay. The only reason I say that is, in those scenarios, if we had a child come forward and make a statement later on, and then we no longer have the video, I don't know. That's the only thing, that 30 days felt actually a little short if a child reported maybe that there was something that happened, and then didn't come forward till 45 days later.
I can ask that question when we go to the I think part of it's just the capacity.
I'm sure, that's a lot
capacity
of
of the
cameras,
machine.
yeah.
That we purchase in order to be able to maintain in high def, that you can actually
See it.
see it.
Yeah.
The longer you go, Jake, remind us to ask that question tomorrow when we do the training, if I forget. But the longer we go,
More storage.
the
yeah.
more, the more storage
Yeah.
that it is. So, like I said, I know from I did it for 16 years, it was a rarity that something happened that didn't come up within
30 days.
that didn't come up within 30 days. And if it was something that massive and significant that came up 6 months after, there were other ways to get
Okay.
that. It wasn't just the school involved, it was the police involved, there was the state police involved. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll do our second reading at the next meeting, then our third reading in May.
I just have a quick.
Sure.
It might not be quick. So it says, access to video recordings from security cameras shall be limited to school administrators only. So just because I see this happen a lot. So say there was a discipline issue and we used what was on the cameras, there was no other recording. Would those ever be shown to a family, say, to prove what the district is saying happened? Am I making sense?
You are, I can't remember a time that we have shown or used video footage on the bus or in hallways with families.
There's always other students.
Absent a subpoena from court. We have a lot of students who still to this day, we have parents who don't want their child's videotaped and don't want that information shared out. So you might see something of a child that you don't know that goes to school here. You can have identifiable information, whether or not it's a child with a disability, a child going into an EL classroom, whatever it is for it. So I can't think of a scenario that I've seen doing this where we've shown absent a subpoena from court and court documentation that says you have to turn this tape over for a court investigation. But if we're getting into the back and forth of like, no, my child didn't go up the down stairwell, and there's 100 kids, we're not showing that videotape.
That was my question, yep. I've just seen it happen in other districts.
Yeah, and obviously the police.
That they weren't believing.
Yeah, sometimes what we've had to do, if they don't believe us, we'll have the police department watch the videotape, and then we'll have Officer Adam or Officer Brett say, I know you may not believe Miss Keegan, who said she saw the tape, or, Mr. Ringett, who said he also saw the tape, but I, as the police officer, also saw the tape, and
Your
we're able
student
to.
did A, your student
Yep.
B.
So we have 3 people who watched the tape, who all saw the same thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next policy is second reading of draft IKF, which is our graduation policy. There is one typo down there with how we spelled chemistry, which we do need to fill. And again, this is how we're changing our graduation requirements to fill MCAS competency. And we need to change following language. Thank you, Courtney. One of the questions that came up is, could we add different subjects? And I met with Mr. Ringett and reached out. The way the language is written, it has to be on MCAS-tested subjects. So MCAS-tested subjects are English 9 and English 10, Algebra 1 and geometry, or biology or chemistry. So we couldn't add environmental science to it. We couldn't add algebra to it, because the way the language is written is specific to subject areas that are tested on the MCAS. So to recap, what we're saying is that in order to receive the competency determination, a student must receive a passing grade in biology or chemistry, which is what they would have taken on the MCAS exam, Algebra 1 and geometry, and English 9 and English 10, which also happen to be graduation requirements. The last part of my report, and I know it's long, appreciate, is I'm going to have Rob and Bob come up. And this is something that we started the discussion back in the fall, and we have a population of student who, for a variety of reasons, gets hospitalized for anything from medical to social emotional, to long-term to short-term. And we had students transitioning back to school. And we did different things for different kids. Obviously, you have a child who's out for 6 weeks for social emotional. They're not coming back on Monday. You're not just saying, go back. So we did different things. One of the things that came out through conversations with Bob and with Robin, with the counseling department, and with special education is, we need to put together a more formalized program for when students return back, that we're able to offer students and families additional resources other than just, hey, you're coming back on Monday, you're going through your 7-period day, and the bell rings at 2 o'clock and you go home. So I'm gonna have Rob and Bob come up and talk a little bit about what they're doing in each of their buildings. It's a mouthful: hospital to school transition plan, pathways to wellness. This is really our pathways to wellness program for what we're doing for our kids when they're coming back from a variety of hospitalizations. So I know usually we go from the lower grades to our upper grades. Today we will start with our upper grades and work over to our lower grades. So Mr. Ringett.
Okay, so, thank you, Dr. Vieira. So, one of the things we noticed, as Dr. Vieira was saying, is that we do have higher populations that are returning from some form of long-term absence, whether it be hospitalization because of an injury, hospitalization due to mental health, or some other circumstance that prohibits them from being in school for long periods of time. When we get our students back, like Dr. Vieira is saying, historically, schools have said, hey, it's 7 o'clock, first period, what class are you going to? We're trying to kind of alleviate a lot of the anxieties that are present during that time. So I have to send out thanks to the counseling department, especially Kayla Vidian at the middle school, Lindsay Ryan at the high school. They're kind of like the spearheads of this as our adjustment counselors at both schools. The counseling departments they've wanted something in place for a while, that's for sure. And through this process, we held a nice little meeting down at the middle school a little bit ago to kind of help formalize some things, formalize some ideas, get some central ideas out there. Kind of what it comes down to is when the students are returning, do they have that dedicated person? Do they have that dedicated space? Do they have, is a student able to expose themselves to a full day, or do they need a partial day? Or do they need some other modification in between? What type of workload do they need? What type of counseling sessions do they need? How many counseling sessions do they need throughout the day when they first kind of return to things? So all those things kind of get put into place. And what's nice about what the schools have come up with is that it's very consistent between the schools, and it's individualized for each student, because no two students are really going to react the same way. We kind of have an idea of a generalized return to full, kind of like a full exposure to the population. So they're in classes full-time and they're starting to get all their work done. We put a loose number of about 2 weeks on that. But like I said, each student is their own individual. Some students will take longer. Some students might not take a full 2 weeks. Might depend on how long they were out for. So we have what's nice is we have that flexibility within this program in order to kind of accommodate whatever needs are coming through our door, which is nice.
Thank you. What's very important too is that we find out from the hospital the discharge plan and what they saw, what their recommendations were, and we try to include them as much as possible in a transition. Nothing's worse than them not telling us and a student just showed up. That should be a crime. the first thing the student wants to know is, what am I going to tell my friends? And the first thing the parent wants to know is, am I the only parent dealing with this? So it's really for the family and the student together to work on this program. There are multiple layers to it, a lot of rehearsal with the students of what to say, if there's any stresses, who do you identify who you go to, a backup plan for that. And there are multiple layers of support to ensure that there's not another hospitalization and to hopefully not have an out-of-district placement because of this. There's some of the behaviors that we've seen post-COVID, traumatic. So this goes through all the social emotional that the student may have, the resources outside of school, inside of school that the parents have as well as the student, the academic load that they will have, transitioning between classes, how is that going to work, and really listening to the student to see what their concerns are. But majority of the time is, what do I say to my teachers, what do I say to our friends? And we spend a lot of time just rehearsing that, whatever you're comfortable with. I was sick, I had COVID, whatever they feel comfortable with. Again, that role playing really helps them go back, get into that population. But as you see, it is a thoroughly step-by-step of what to do in all aspects of schooling. And as Rob mentioned, our school adjustment counselors were spectacular putting this together in a very speedy fashion, but very in-depth and appropriate.
Any questions from anybody?
I am so impressed with this. I can't even begin to say, I see it throughout the state in the work that I do. This is amazing. It's super comprehensive, but it gives the kid and the family the best opportunity, I think, the best opportunity to come back and to feel safe and to feel supported. And as having a kid who had come out of one of these, I wish I had this. I really and truly wish I had this. So, huge thank yous. I might know somebody that might be reaching out to ask more questions, but this is awesome.
Very thorough. I mean, I read through it. Today's Wednesday. I think it was either Sunday night or Monday night. I read through it, and I thought it was very comprehensive, well documented, like the strategies and everything else. I mean, so kudos. Please go back and say kudos. And I would be bragging about this.
I'm trying to.
I know. We should go to the state to go into every school, because I'm sure we're not the only ones having this.
We have I can't even tell you the amount of meetings I sit in on where people are just at the table with the teachers and counselors and administrators are at the table with this deer in the headlights face, because they want to help the student, they want to help the family, but they're like, where do we start? And this literally just tells you start here.
It's very comprehensive. So kudos to the team.
Ms. Vivian was my first hire when I came on board, and she always makes me look very, very intelligent. And she doesn't let me forget it.
Does not. I can attest to that.
She's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just end with this. You look at what makes up the Douglas Public Schools. If you look at these 8 bullet points that we just went over, and just the depth and the breadth of what we covered and what makes up a school district, just to recap, we start off with Officer Adam and just the relationships that our school resource officer has made, that visibility, that safety, that security, that connection with kids. He's such an integral part of our schools. Kathleen Hayes and her literacy circles, instilling the love of reading for kids, instilling those connections across settings where kids may not necessarily make those connections with kids. We dove into STAR data, which had to happen, but it allowed us the ability to understand our students at a deeper level and understand that a lot of our kids aren't coming to school, and when you're not here, you can't learn. You need money to make the school system run. That's the budget piece of it. The family survey, they play an important role in what we do and our important partner and voice in our school district, and being able to have that voice for how we can communicate with them better enhances our relationship with them, but the overall experience for them and their students. We had to talk policy when it came to security cameras and MCAS, and then finally this great Pathways to Wellness. And that was just in one school committee meeting, and that's just what we could highlight. We had Taylor Morrell today, who was on the TV. She received a High Five Award for Channel 5 News. We're going to share that out later on in the newsletter. But she did the blue envelope to raise awareness that if you pulled over and you have autism, you hand the police officer that envelope that says, I have autism, and I'm not acting this way because I've done something wrong. I'm acting this. So she's doing something to raise awareness. There's so much that's happening within our school district that is above and beyond just test scores and everything. So this right here just kind of highlights like a snapshot of everything that goes into being and running and being a part of a school district, and the work that the four of you and Julia, who's not here, do on the school committee, and we're always grateful for that. So thank you.
School community.
And the school community,
School
correct.
community. That's what I got out of tonight, that community feeling over and over and over again. In these days, that is absolutely paramount. So it's been a great meeting.
Yeah. Long, and thank you.
Awesome.
And I will end on my 2-hour and 5-minute time frame.
So I'm going to ask to go out of order and do consent agenda so we can have the Douglas High School DECA out-of-state international conference competition in Orlando, Florida. If we can have that so we can get Mr. Rob out of here. If you can leave us.
Okay. Right. So, thank you for bringing me up out of order. I appreciate that.
I try. When I catch it, I try.
So I sit here again for our DECA club, who for 2 years now have been phenomenal. You met the two biggest all-stars and promoters of the DECA club, I believe, at the last school committee meeting, in Lily George and Erin Picanzo. And they are seniors and they are graduating. And they have really kind of been kind of like the trailblazers for all of this. So we're very appreciative of them and, in all honesty, their abilities. Surprisingly, we do have a freshman that came up who has shown remarkable ability in this field as well. Ava Satori has just been phenomenal and dominated the regionals and dominated at states as well. So we have a promising future as well. So I anticipate maybe next year and the year after, and the year after. So we have had several students compete at the state competition. That was on February 27th and 28th, and due to their amazing abilities, they have qualified for the International Career Development Conference, or the ICDC, which is similar to last year when I came to you for the same request.
Yep.
This year, instead of it being in Anaheim, California, it's in Orlando, Florida. So we are all very excited. The dates this year are between Saturday, April 26th through Thursday, May 1st. And they would need to be at the conference again before 4:30 on that Saturday. That's kind of like the big registration check-in time frame where they get their kind of like their ID badges, their lanyards, things like that to help them navigate through the whole conglomerate of hotels that they stay in and the conference itself. So the Massachusetts chapter stays in the same hotel. Okay, so all the schools from Massachusetts are all kind of centralized. Maybe it's so all the accents can be the same. However, that is being held at the Rosen Plaza Hotel at 9700 International Drive in Orlando, Florida. The costs related to this event, the students are currently working on fundraising. I'm about to receive another fundraising form tomorrow, I believe, about doing things at our home track meets and perhaps selling some items at those, whether it be snacks or waters or things like that for the athletes, candles that DECA sells all year long. So I think they're going to be working closely on doing that at the track meets. And so I'll see that soon. Advisor fees would require a transfer of funds of approximately $1,700 from the high school general fund to the professional travel and conferences budget line. So therefore, the advisor may attend as well. Of course, this is dependent on the round-trip flight, as flight changes all the time. When this was written, the cost for a flight for one person was $329.82.
It's gone up.
Flights are so bad right now.
They are.
Any questions?
It's the hotel room situation. Hotel room situation.
Hotel room situation, all staff members get a single. All competitors get triplets or quads, gender-based, essentially. So if you have 4 female students going, they would get a quad together. If you had 4 female students and a male student going, you'd have a quad and a single. That's right. So they have it done up that way. The advisors themselves, because the advisors all become very familiar with each other throughout these competitions, through the Central Mass competition, and then into the state competition. They all connect very well. I mean, this is a business competition essentially, and what's better in business than networking?
Right.
So they do have that almost intuitive ability to get together, and they do run kind of like a shift, like observation shifts throughout. So that way it kind of keeps an eye on things.
That was a bigger part of my question. Thank you.
Are any of the parents going, or is this our only adult going with these 4 kids? I'm just curious.
So it's our only adult going with the
All
4
4
students.
kids. Okay.
Yes.
For the rest of this, hotel rooms was one concern. For the rest of this schedule, because this is a lot, and I know they have opportunities to go off property to go to parks and such. I guess, like, what do we typically, I assume in Anaheim, there was like some plan. I just want to make sure the kids are like, okay, in all these various scenarios.
So, so the packet that is sent along with this is very full, very, very full and very in-depth. And there's, like any conference, there's kind of like an opening keynote type of deal. Then there might be a couple of kind of like conference sessions going on before they get into their competitive modes and what they're going to present to people. We also have, obviously, if you're going to be in Orlando, you have a couple of options down in Orlando. You got SeaWorld, you got Universal, you've got Disney, you've got a lot of these things that are within short distance of each other. So they do have times kind of like set out to allow the students to have that fun. Those costs are extra and come to the families and come to the students as needed. They're not included in the price of the conference. They do it together. So they kind of come to a decision together and say, okay, so today for our fun activity, who would like to go to Universal? Who would like to go to Disney? All right, well, Universal won out, so we're all going to go to Universal. We're all going to go to, like, they do it together as a group. You know, they become a pretty good group together.
Very good.
Yeah.
The news doesn't make me feel good about traveling students right now. I'm like, can they stay together? I know, and my kids are younger, but I'm like, oh God, please let them be okay traveling. That sounds good, though. Thank you for the response.
Not a problem.
Any other questions? I'll be looking for a motion.
So I move to approve permission for 4 qualifying students in the DECA Club to attend the International Career Development Conference from April 26th through May 1st, 2025 in Orlando, Florida.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Awesome. Congratulations. Wish us them the best of luck, and we look forward to having them come back and tell us how well they did.
We're gonna find out. And, no, we're all very excited for them. Like I said, for Erin and Lily, this is a phenomenal back-to-back
It's a
years that they've been
capstone.
able to qualify for this. And with the freshmen kind of already on board, heading to this level, I can only imagine.
Yep.
So, present is good, the future is bright.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
coming. Back to the consent agenda, the February 24th meeting minutes.
I think that one there I just saw. Oh, about the accounts payable report.
I'm going to go back to it.
Oh, okay.
I will.
So we're doing.
I'm going to the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'd be looking for a motion on the February 24th meeting minutes.
I move to approve the February 24th, 2025 school committee meeting minutes.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks. Next is the February 10th Budget Subcommittee meeting minute notes.
A lot to review.
Huh?
A lot to review.
Anybody, I'd be looking for a motion?
I move to approve the February 10th, 2025 budget subcommittee meeting.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks. Now moving back to the school committee, subcommittee, accounts payable report. I'll do the warrant number 10 SCH 25 dated September 5th, 2024 in the amount of $19,233.55. There were 4 items and there was nothing out of the ordinary, and it was reviewed by Julia. Next one is 11 SCH 25 dated September 12th, 2024 in the amount of $44,450.41, signed by Julia. Nothing out of the ordinary on that one. Next one is warrant number 32 SCH-L 25 MS 25-05 MS 25-06 32 SCH 25 HS 25-06. Warrants are dated on the 2nd, February 6th, and February 7th in the amount of $359,139.15. These signs were signed by Julia, and there was nothing out of the ordinary on those. Next is warrant number 33 SCH 25 dated 13 February 2025 in the amount of $39,187.36. Warrants were signed by Julia, nothing out of the ordinary. Next is 34 SCH 25, 34 SCH-L 25, MS 25-06, dated February 20th, 2025, in the amount of $200,233.55, signed by myself, Heather Moran. Nothing out of the ordinary on that one. Next is warrant number 35 SCH 25, warrant 35 SCH-L 25, dated February 27th, 2025, in the amount of $64,982.46, signed by Julia. Nothing out of the ordinary on that one. And finally, last but not least, warrant 36 SCH 25, 36 SCH-L 25, dated March 6, 2025, in the amount of $233,591.73, signed by Julia. Nothing out of the ordinary on that one as well. Now, moving on to the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations Management report, please.
Okay, so I have you, remember the last meeting, not the prior meeting, but the one before that, the regular, what would you call it, the regular meeting? I know the last one, we were doing a whole bunch of things, getting caught up for FY '26, but I was not able to cover all of the special ed deficits, and I said I was going to continue to work on that. And the reason being is because the more you proceed through the fiscal year, you can identify more vacancy savings or things of that nature, because most of the year, or a good portion of the year, has gone by. So I was able to cover everything with this transfer request, okay? Including special ed and all that, and including, by the way, the high school did put in a request, because a number of these are also from administrators. All of the schools got caught up on theirs as well, including the DECA trip. So that's on here. So the one he was talking about, it actually went from 1,700 to 2,000 for them as well. So, and along those lines too, as we had talked about, because a lot of this was at the last couple of meetings, and this one finally getting everything covered for special ed. I did update the special ed report. The last one I had done was on February, I have it right here. It was done at the February 5th meeting. So again, I'll be handing that out as well, in conjunction with doing the transfers. So again, this is all throughout the general fund budget, including all of the administrators sending me, every single one of them sent me transfer requests as well. So, so at the next meeting, I will have updated budget reports for the school committee, because these should be posted by then, and I can provide that information as well. So that'll be good. So I'm very happy with that. Does anyone have any questions on the transfers themselves?
I don't. No. They're looking for a motion?
I move to approve the FY 2025 general fund transfer request number 5.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by? Meg. Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks.
And so we just handed out, so in conjunction with that, this is the update, and it's only slightly different as far as the current budget deficit, which is including the medical and therapeutic contractual services lines, the district-wide special education tuition accounts, and the district-wide special education transportation, and that's for general fund, circuit breaker, and the 240 grant, all encompassed. As of February 5th, it was, the deficit was $650,984.13, and there's been some adjustments as can happen with special education. Sometimes you create a purchase order, you think the service is going to be for so long, but it's a little bit less, so it's just down slightly to $628,873.93. So, but again, the most important thing is that everything's been covered, whether it be through the 240 grant. I mean, I actually have a little bit, we did have fully encumbered the full $280,000 in tuitions for the 240 grant. Some of that difference, in fact, a good portion of that difference, there's almost $20,000 left there, so they must have unencumbered in that a tuition in there. So I have a little bit there, so if something does come up between there and the end of the year, we'll utilize that full $280,000. But so we're in good stead as of this moment in time. But again, the big thing is, which I do not anticipate it changing much at all, is that huge use of the circuit breaker, so affecting our 26 budget going forward. But also, we did have $120,000 that we budgeted in the elementary school for special education tuition for a student, and thus far, a placement has not been found. So some of those funding, because of course now we're already talking about, even if they found something today, it may not start. So projecting through June 30th, we were able to free up some of that $120,000, which I utilized as well in covering everything. So again, we don't know what can happen between now and the end of the year, but right now, we're in good stead for the public hearing in conjunction with the FY25 budget reports, which will be good to be in conjunction with the 26 reporting. I'll provide that information, all the reports on the budget update, okay? And then we'll also have the FY26, because I'll be doing the projections as well for April 2nd, going from 25 to carry over into 26 to see what we can utilize in the 26. So that'll all be done on April 2nd. And again, we still have, because it's April 2nd, we still have April, May, and June to get through. So we still have to be, I hate to use the words, I know everybody wants to, but we just don't know what can happen. But we are further along in the year, though, so it's good. So that's the status with regard to that. Is there any questions on that? Special education, it hasn't changed much, which is a very good thing. It's gone a little bit in a better direction. So all I have left this evening is some reclasses, and this is just, so for copying machines, DESE requires them to be put in either the 2250 function code, 2250 function code is for non-instructional, and the 2453 is for instructional, and some of them got confused. We have a lot of copier leases, so we're just reclassing some from non-instructional to instructional to clean that up. And that's all that is.
Be looking for a motion if there's no questions.
I move to approve the FY 2025 reclassifications number 6.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by? Meg. Seconded by Meg. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining?
Okay, the only other thing that I have for this evening is that, one thing that I haven't brought to you yet for FY '26 is school lunch fees. I know where things are right now, but we did receive an email, another one of those emails last week, I think it was it was Wednesday, and Alice and I got a 2-hour notice that there was a webinar coming up in 2 hours to talk about a program that was eliminated by the federal government. So we used to be able to do, let me know if I did talk about it. I'm a little bit
We
confused.
didn't.
You didn't. We didn't.
We have not talked about it.
Okay,
yet.
I just, a little confused.
Yeah.
Thanks. So we have this wonderful program where we are able to utilize fresh fruits and vegetables from local farms. Okay, and it does take some logistics. In other words, I was so happy to see one recently came through, and I called up Alice and I said, oh, we got my favorite farm, Foppimus is on there. I said, oh, that's great, you've got to go there. I'll keep you posted in the spring when it opens, you've got to go. And so there's so many great things about that program. I mean, first of all, we're able to get fresh fruits and vegetables cheaper for public school districts across the country. We were able to do that. And also, farms like Foppimus, or any other local farm, they were able to coordinate and become part of these programs. And I don't know all of the details about that aspect of it, but rather than having, particularly fruits, obviously, go bad, like apples, Foppimus bought out Keown's, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, from Sutton. They bought out that farm, and so they had a lot more other varieties of fruits, but a lot more apples as well. So then they, through this process with the federal government, they have storage facilities where they can store them, keep them fresh, and then disseminate them, so they're not going bad, they're not getting thrown away. Public schools aren't having to pay more money of tax dollars locally to purchase the fruits and vegetables, but it's more fruits in this case when you get in this time frame, obviously, you know, before the lettuces and things come out. So we were told that it was just cut out. We got a 2-hour notice, went on a webinar. The DESE School Nutrition Agency in Massachusetts is saying still go through the process, still fill out the forms as if we still had the money, just in case some funding came by, maybe by the state or something. I don't know. There's so much of this is going on, so I don't think the state's going to have money to cover all these. But I just wanted to let you know about that. So I'm glad that I did hold off and did forget about that one. We did do a lot of things that night, but I hadn't done that. So we are kind of, I'm kind of planning on waiting until at least May. I have no idea what's going on with so many things right now. Wait and see what's going on. We don't understand about how things are happening at the federal level, pushing down state level. The state may have to change what they're allowed to fund or not. So I don't know if that might affect the free lunch. I don't know. We haven't been told that. I want to be very clear. We haven't been told that, but we don't know. Right now, I can't even promise anything about anything. So I am going to wait until May. That still gives plenty of notice, and we might even have to wait until June. I don't know. I know we want to give parents notice for the subsequent school year prior to when we leave the school year. But I want to make sure that we have as much information before we leave school as we could possibly have from state and then the effect of the federal, because it's a USDA program. That's federal. That's federal.
Are all states
So-
on free lunch, or is it only a select few? It's only a few, right?
Yeah, no, I don't know the number.
Okay.
Could be a lot more than a few, I don't know. I don't have that information right now.
That's state funded, right? The free lunch is state. It's not
Right,
federal.
right now, but you've got to
Okay.
remember too that when we say, just to be clear, for anybody that's listening as well, when we say state-funded, okay, for instance, on our level, we say locally funded, right? We go to the town meeting, our local town meeting, we think of it as being funded locally. And we kind of forget about the fact that some of those funds are coming from the state government, which is coming from the federal to the state to the local. And we have to keep that in mind. A lot of people forget that aspect of it, that the state government as well, in their coffers, they are calling it state funds. But they may be getting a large portion from the federal government. It's disseminated. We call it a pass-through, those of us that work in municipal finance. But we don't talk about that out in public. People don't know that, okay? That is very, very key. So looking at it from a local government, and that's why I don't want to sound like I'm, but there are some things going on right now that we've never seen in the history of our country, okay, ever. So we're at the bottom of the pack. Local government, local schools, and all municipal departments are at the bottom of the pack in the hierarchy of funding. It can start with federal, gets passed down to state, and then gets passed down to local, okay? And then we have our local, of course, raise and appropriate from taxation and from estimated revenues as well, like building permits and things of that nature, new growth, okay? But this is, I can't stress without, actually I am going to sound a little bit alarmist, okay? What is going on the federal level is going to affect every single thing going on in the federal government, which a lot of people unfortunately do not understand the programs that are done at the federal level because it's too far removed from us on the local level. They are pertinent. I'm not saying there isn't some efficiencies that can be had. Absolutely, and that goes for every single company across the United States of America and the world, okay? But they also affect our lives in ways that we don't know until it's gone. You know that old saying, you don't know what you got till it's gone, okay? So we've got that aspect of it. So why I brought that up is, circling back to the school lunch, is that the state is now, all states are now are in a position where they have to re-look at everything, just like I'm saying to you on the local level. On the state level, they now have to look at absolutely everything with that crystal ball that nobody has to say, we have no idea the effect of what is going on that has never happened in our country since its inception, okay? I'm going to make that abundantly clear. So they have to re-look at things. And then, where does that get pushed down to?
It's
The
tough
local
choices, right?
level.
Yep.
The local level. So that's why, we just have to be just very careful, but yet, we can't really say anything, though, either. We have zero information.
Which is why we're being
You
so
know?
cautious with our
Yeah.
revolving accounts, because we just don't know what's
There are
going to
gonna be
happen
impacts to
and when
everything.
it's going to happen. And we work in a fiscal year, and in a school year, but
And you're not allowed to go
Yeah,
over budget.
yeah.
Not even by a penny.
But the federal government could decide to eliminate a program in March of next year that goes into effect in December of next year, and we're halfway through the school year at that point. So we just need to be careful with our revolving funds. If that happens, we have the ability to make choices as to whether or not we're going to fund it or not fund it.
So another thing is, we get approximately $400,000 in federal grants. Now, we were told that just last week, but we do know that it's like a yo-yo. One day it said one way, then it's another, then it's this, then it's that. Nobody can make decisions like that. There's no way that anybody would run a business efficiently or inefficiently. You could never run a business like that in any way, any business. So they said that, so you can imagine that my trying to say to Paul and to you, and this is where I'm getting a huge headache this year, is I want to do the right thing. I want to maintain all of our student services and everything that our students need and deserve. but we can't go in the red either, but I don't know what to advise anybody. I honestly don't.
No one does.
$400,000 we could lose. You can imagine what we've already, because of things that no control over. These students deserve what they, and we had to utilize our circuit breaker, which is what it was there for, but now we don't have that. In almost 30 years of being, it doesn't matter whether it's town or school side. It's the same thing. You're talking about budgets. I've never seen anything like that. And if anybody had actually told me that we would ever see what's going on now in the United States of America, I would say, you are nuts. We would never, it could never happen, but this is where we are. So I'm going to do the best I can. Please forgive me when I get a little bit nervous about being conservative, and maybe I will have a little bit more, you're going to see some more angst.
Well, I think it's prudent, right? I just, the circumstances of where we are,
Yeah.
right? Everything
the best we
is
can.
under a microscope and is on the chopping block. That there are no.
I don't know if it's under a microscope. It seems to be that it's just,
It is.
It is,
Yeah.
I hate to use it, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's what the citizens of the United States of America voted for, and that's where
Yeah.
we're at.
And that's
That's
what we end up with, that's what we end up with,
That's
yeah.
where we're at now. And
Yeah.
again, all we can do locally and within the school
Yeah.
department is make sure that we are conservative with our
yeah.
our funds and our revolving funds.
In our
that-
projections.
That we can
all of them.
open the doors next year.
Yeah.
But we also have the ability to, if anything gets cut,
Mm-hmm.
that we have the ability to respond.
And I can't promise that. I guess that's what I'm trying to stress.
The federal government, we're funded through September 30th, right? So we did get a CR bill that's passed. So now it's back to how that's gonna shake out. We do know that cuts are coming. So,
I don't know if, and I had to step up for a minute, did we approve the minutes?
yes.
Yep.
Okay, wow, that was fast.
Yeah, we're all set.
Okay.
Yeah.
I circled that.
Very efficient.
Any other topics not anticipated?
There aren't any.
I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn at 9:07.
So moved.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Teresa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstained? Thank you so much, everybody. Have a
Have a
good
good
night.
night.
Can you please hold this down?